All right. Good morning, everyone. So we spoke about WDLs, how to run them, how to validate them. So we'll try to do this all on our own right now. Please do ask questions because the later half of this day is going to be a hackathon. So you're going to be using a lot of WDL in the hackathon. So this is your chance to learn. So please stop me, ask questions. Andre and Geraldine will walk around and help you out with them. Before that, do all of you know where to get the workshop slides from? You have the, okay. So it's broad.io slash is here, GATK 1905. broad.io slash GATK 1905. So here you will see slides from all the days. Some of the exercises that we're going to do now. If you scroll down, I've created this slide to give you some important links. We spoke a lot about GATK tools, how to use them, but in the workshop, you can only use so many different use cases for a particular tool. So if you would like to learn more about the tools, learn about all the options, we provide also a lot of tutorials and blogs. Go to this link, GATK User Guide. And you'll have links to tool documentation, best practices pipeline. This is essentially like the pipelines that we use in production or we recommend using at Broad. We put this under best practices. We are in the process of revamping our best practices and updating them with the latest tools, which will happen over the next 3 or 4 weeks. So that will be updated in the next 3 or 4 weeks, but everything else for now has the latest information. You can go to tool documentation. I've provided that link to you here as well. But if you were to go from your user guide, go to tool documentation, it will give you a list of all the categories of tools that we have. It's called GATK Toolkit for a reason. It's got hundreds of tools, or I don't know the exact number, but there are quite a few tools. For example, for short variant discovery, we have Mutek2, haplotype caller, some of our tools that are in beta. Take a look at them. This is a very interesting pipeline tool. It's called Read Pipeline Spark. If you're familiar with Spark tools, or we can talk about that later. This basically runs BWA, mark duplicates, BQSR, haplotype caller, all together on unaligned reads. So yeah, take a look at these documentations whenever you get a chance to. Ask us questions now, or if we don't get to all of your questions today, what you can do is go to this link, GATK Form. This is where the GATK community posts all their questions. And we try our best to answer each one of them. All right, so you have these slides available to you in the same link. I'll write down the link to this Google Drive on the board later for you to take down or somewhere there. All right, now let's dive into the worksheet tutorial. So for this, you need to download this GATK bundle zip folder. Let's go ahead and download that. Perfect. Not on this one though, right? Okay. Yeah. All right. This has the bundle. Perfect. Thank you. Okay. You will also need this worksheet. So again, if you go to broad.io/GATK1905, under exercises, go to Helsinki Whittle plus Cromwell worksheet. Did everyone follow that? Can we write down the link here? Okay. Was everybody able to find this PDF? Yeah? GATK 1905. All right. For the next 30 to 45 minutes, we're going to try and cover 6 different things. The first one is to just take a simple Whittle, run it. We'll try to see how to configure the inputs, how to run different, a chain of different tasks together. We'll try to see how do you validate your Whittle and your input file, and then try to run a small GATK analysis using Whittle. And then finally, we'll also see how to take this Whittle, throw it in Terra, and try to run it on Terra. Sound good? Also, I want to remind you guys again, you'll be using a lot of this in the hackathon, so please ask questions so that you're prepared. So as soon as you come back from lunch, you can start hacking. I'll show you that. So we have the jar files in the bundle that you just downloaded. So we have the GATK and the Cromwell jar files in there. I'll show you that in a second. What's up? Oh, sorry. All right, so you all have this GATK bundle 1905 folder downloaded on your systems. So let's CD into that directory. You have a bunch of different folders. We're going to start with Hello World and jars. Your question was, where can I find Cromwell? In this jars folder. You'll have Cromwell and WarmTool. WarmTool is what you use to validate your Whittles and your input file. GATK is already pre-installed on your systems, so you're good there. All right, so let's start with the first part of our exercise, which is to run a simple Whittle workflow. So this is the format of a workflow. Can everybody see the screen, or is it too small? Yeah. Yeah. Is that better? Or maybe slightly bigger? Is that better? Yeah. Sounds good. Where do you go to your downloads? How do you find your downloads on this? Oh, if you do, yeah. Or if you, from the home, I think you should be able to go home. And there's no downloads there? Interesting. Ah, there it is. And where we download just now? It's called the Helsinki. Yeah, this one. So how do I open this? So I just run it and it'll open up this. How do you open a PDF from here? Sorry? HDG? HDG X. Where's the minus in this? Ah. Is that it? Perfect. Thank you. Is that better?
To look at it, you could have it on here.
That'd be so much better.
Side, so you
Yeah.
have to switch between the two.
Let's do that. I like that.
So that way you can display it, but also take advantage of these beautiful screens.
Yeah, I agree. Can you switch? Yeah, please. Awesome. Thank you. All right. Sorry about that. All right, let's jump right in. The first part of this tutorial is to understand the structure of a WDL. The first part of the WDL is to define a workflow, which essentially tells you what the rest of your WDL is doing. If you see here, so this is the name of the workflow, Hello World. It's calling something called write greeting, which is a task right below it. And the way you define a workflow is you write workflow, that's the syntax, and the name of the workflow, that can be anything. And then in curly brackets, you define that workflow, which is essentially calling a task. And the task here is write greeting. All right, and within this task, there are two sections. One section is the command, which is essentially command line instructions. And the other one is output, which defines what, where your outputs for this task go into. So whether it's a file or is it standard out or whatever. So that's a very basic structure. You have a workflow, it calls a task, the task has a command and an output. Sounds simple, right? Okay, so that's essentially the first workflow. Now let's try to run this. In your jars folder within this GATK bundle 1905, let's all actually try to get into that folder. It's easier to run different commands from in here, because then the paths for everybody will be the same. So if you take a look at your jars folder, you have the Cromwell jar and the WarmTools. We're using version 38 for this workshop. So now this WDL, the simple WDL that I was showing you is within Hello World folder. So the WDL I was talking about just now is this Hello World 0 WDL. So how you run that is basically Cromwell is a jar file. So you do java -jar and then Cromwell, so which is in your jars folder. And run, and the path to your WDL that we're going to run first is in hello WDL, hello world, hello world, hello world _ 0.WDL. So java -jar, give it the path of the Cromwell jar, which is in the jars folder, and then give it the path to the WDL, which is in hello WDL folder. And let's run it. Yes.
So you didn't define the input statement, but there are from the no inputs, but you are like allowed to do it.
Yeah, I'm going to explain that in just a second. So were all of you able to run that? So the command is right up here, java -jar, the path to the jar folder, and then the path to the WDL, which is here up on the screen. Again, I want to mention, let's try to run it in this GATK bundle 1905 folder. Let's run everything from here, because then the paths for all of our files will be the same. Sound good? Were all of you able to run it? Did you get this successful run? Yeah? There seems to be some confusion there. Confusion?
Anybody need help? Remember raising hands?
Andre, somebody needs help there. The last row there. Sorry? Is hello world? Yes, yeah, that's the syntax, yes. So workflow, task, call, Those are all syntax. Yes. Yes. So the word workflow, command, command, output, task, call, those are all syntax. Everything else is. File is also syntax. Yeah, that's, yeah. I will get to that in a second. So I'll show you how this was easy, right? This is simple. I'll show you what the output is and then show you how it went from this to the output and then how you can change that. Yes. So each task needs a command and an output. So the command is essentially doing whatever, and an output which will define what's happening to your output file. But this is like the very basic structure of a WDL. A script block? I don't know. Andre, do you know if you can put a script block? All right. So if you were all able to run this, I will show you how the inputs, how you can use the inputs. But just before that, if you scroll up in your standard out, you will see this section called outputs. This is in your standard out. When you run the WDL, you get this standard out. And if you scroll up a little, you'll see this section called outputs. What's this essentially telling you is that this is where your output file went. And it gives you the name of the workflow. This is a unique workflow ID. The name of your call, your task, and then this word execution is common to all the output list. And then this is the name of the file that your output went into. So let's copy this from hello world to standard out. And all of this is defined in your worksheet, which is not moving right now. Huh? Why is this not moving? Maybe that's helpful. All right, so let's cat this output. Or you can just use tab completion. So it's, It's probably all the way from here. Sorry, copy from Cromwell executions, or that folder is already in your current directory. So cat Cromwell executions, hello world, and just tab complete it. So from your current folder, go to Cromwell executions, and then hello world, and then there's an ID, and then just keep hitting tab. It'll give you the options, and hit enter. And this is the output of your file, hello world. Now, how did we get from this simple workflow to hello world, even though we didn't provide it with an input file, right? So one way to do that is in this very simple WDL, we defined our input right here. In the command, we said echo hello world. So it created this hello world text, threw it in, and so basically it created a standard output, and then that was taken into this output file. And the output file is what we looked at just now. Simple enough? All right. Any questions? Were you all able to look at your output file? All right. Also, the lead tech lead for Cromwell just walked in. Any questions? Please feel free to ask him. And yeah.
Any complaints about the insane verbosity of Cromwell's outputs? You don't have to.
Well, no, I mean, I think in production, most people run it in server mode, which is kind of run it once and then you interact with request endpoints.
Thanks, Dan. So yeah, a lot of these questions will be directed towards you now. All right, so that was essentially the first part of your worksheet. This was a simple WDL. Now let's try to change the inputs a little bit. So under the second section, before we hard-coded the input, now let's try to use a variable. So if you can see here, there's one change to the previous WDL. Here in the command, instead of echo hello world, we are using a variable called greeting. And you know this is a variable because it's in curly brackets, has this $sign in front of it, and is in quotes. Now that's the syntax. That's how you need to define your variables. Put it in quotes, put a $sign, put it in curly brackets, and give it any name you like. Now, you also need to tell Cromwell whether this is a string or an integer or any other data type. So how you do that is within this task, you define the data type for your variable. Simple enough? All right, and then the rest is very similar. You're creating the standard output, throw that in a file called output file, and we'll try to see how you run this. Now, are we defining the input value anywhere in this WDL? Can you spot where we do it? Exactly. So we just have a variable. We haven't given it a value yet. So how WDL works is it has key and value pairs. So when you define a variable, those are the keys that go in a WDL. The values go in another file called the JSON file. And that's shown right here. and how you define a JSON file is, and I'll even show you how to create one, a brand new JSON file. We'll go into all of those details in just a second. But before that, let's see what is within a JSON file. So inside a JSON file, here we are giving the value hello world. But how does the WDL know exactly which variable this hello world string is going into? That's defined by first, the name of the workflow, which you see right here. Put that name first, put a dot, then put the name of the task, write greeting right here, and then put a dot, and then the name of the variable. Did you have a question? No. Put that in quotes, colon, and then the value. So this is your key, and this is your value. Yes. Sorry? Yes, and I will get to that in a second. Sound good? And now how do you run that? The command is up here, java-jar. Again, the Cromwell jar, run this WDL -i and the inputs JSON file. So let's go ahead and run that. And this time, the WDL you want to run is hello world 1.WDL. It's all here on the screen. And you define the inputs JSON with -i. The input JSON is also in your hello world folder. It's hello world.inputs.json. And let's run this. Questions? Anybody having trouble running this? So, question. If I changed hello world here to hello world 1, would that throw me an error or not? Sorry? If it was, say, let's say the first one without the input JSON file. If it was just this, where we hard-coded the input file, we're not defining the inputs. If I just changed hello world to hello world 1, would that give me an error? No is the correct answer because you can name that whatever. If I wrote here workflow 1, would that throw me an error? Exactly, that's syntax. So workflow, call, task, command, output. Workflow, task, call, command, output. All of those are WDL syntax. Everything else that you see here, you can change. Yeah. Yeah. This is standard out with this bracket is essentially the standard out for this. Yes. So this output file, you can write this output file 1. So, and then, sorry? Yeah. So the next.
Are you saying you want to call the output file itself?
Yeah, yeah. Out of the file name, something else.
So then you have to do a little bit of extra work. Because right now you're just relying on the default behavior that if I say echo to terminal, the default behavior of Cromwell is to actually save what you're echoing to the standard file. However, if you want to explicitly say, I want to write a file with content of this, and I want this file to contain a particular thing, there is a function in the standard library where you can say, write a file with these contents. It's a different operation in terms of instruction verification.
So if we change the standard out as a standard error, the name of the file will be standard error.
Well, if you put it to standard error, it'll
Yeah.
write it to the standard error. If you want to control the name of the output file and send it to something that is neither standard out or standard error, and just into a named file that is like myfile.txt, for example, then you have to use a function that creates a file with that name. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I'll show you how to do standard error in a second.
And I will say, like, this is the hello world of echoing something and looking standard out. It is not a typical thing that you do in digital Firefox, honestly. It's kind of a toy thing to just run the very first commands, something super simple. Most of the time, we're going to explicitly say we're saying this to text files.
All right, now let's take a look at the standard out that we just created. Again, sorry, if you scroll up, you'll see the link to your standard out file. Scroll down, cat, Cromwell executions. Great. Were you all able to take a look at the standard out?
We did a workshop in Denmark a couple of months ago.
Looks like the file got swapped.
Sometimes we update that. That's pretty important. That's nice. Actually, in the next step, you could
We actually did update this. Those files probably got switched. All right, was that simple enough how to define an input variable? All right, so let's move on to something slightly more complicated next. So now you want to run multiple tasks. You just had one task before. You ran a command, you created a standard output for it. Now, say I want to run two different tasks. I want to run the output from one task as the input of another. How do I do that? So first, in your workflow, under workflow hello world, you define the first task that you want to generate an output for. So here it's call write greeting. Let's look at write greeting and see what's happening there. It's exactly the same task that we just worked with. You define a variable greeting. In the command, you echo greeting. And then in output, you're saying that string out is equal to read the string that's created by standard out. So if it was hello Denmark, then read that. If it was hello Helsinki, read that. From your standard out, read that string and put that in a variable called out. All right, so that's the progression. After you finish with this task, it goes back to this workflow and checks what's the next step. The next step is call read it back to me. And the input for this is original greeting is equal to write greeting dot out. Write greeting is the name of this task. Out is the variable. Take that, throw it in this new variable called original greeting. And so that'll go back to this task. You define that string original greeting in the command echo original greeting to you, and then you create an output. Now this output file goes into file out file. Read it back to me is the task. You define the output from that task and put it in this out file. Yes. So your question is between how do you switch between writing something in disk and memory? Mm-hmm.
So you're saying like if you want to basically create something, keep it in memory, and do something more on that before writing out, then you would cut that within the same task. Like assume the model is that tasks are run on independent VMs. Now, if you're running on-prem, that's not the case. This is originally designed with more cloud in mind. And so just assume a task is happening on an independent VM. So whatever end, have to write it somewhere or another task. You can run multiple commands within the same task. That is possible. To do that, there's some It really depends what you're doing. Like in some cases, it makes a ton of sense. If there's a tiny little thing you want to do before the next step, it definitely makes more sense to put those commands within the same thing because there is some overhead to running things as multiple tasks. But in some cases, and it's really like how long is it going to run and how different are they in terms of, for example, the amount of memory and CPU that they use. They're very different. And if it's a long-running thing, you're better off having it right to disk. But if they're very small operations, or if you had to, you just had to copy 100 gigs of data to a small operation and then the next thing, like definitely put them in the same task. Yeah, balancing those kinds of things, it can be a little different compared to how we traditionally work where you assume everything.
Yes.
Yeah, so in task write each string is common.
String, yeah, that's the data type. Yeah, I will show you how if you change it, say try to write int greeting, how you can validate that, how you can make sure that you don't, that will throw you an error. How do you fix it? How do you catch that error? I'll show you that in a second. But yes, string is the data type and it's defined. It's a defined data. So it goes from, this variable greeting string, we give an input JSON file like we did in the previous step. That value will go into greeting. You echo this, and that basically is your standard out. Exactly. So basically write greeting dot out is saying in that task, that variable, and then you're saying that goes into original greeting. So now because you're handling different tasks, so think of this as like the master. This workflow is the master. This one is here is where you control different tasks. So it's saying that run this task for me, give me that output. I will put that in original greeting. Now I'll take original greeting and exactly.
Yeah, and here the fact that we're doing a read string on the standard out is a little bit tricky because we're doing this slightly non-standard thing of writing the standard out instead of like running a command line or something like that. But it's when we do that, when we're just echoing standard out, we need to have a way to capture that output. And so that's why we use something like a string. But if you were just creating, like running a command that creates a file, you would just grab that file here, and you don't have to do that extra step.
So for the first task, the output says string out equals dollar grading or not. Dollar grading, is that right?
So
you could do that. You could just write that again.
Yeah.
But then if you update that, you have to update it here. So this is a way of not repeating the same code. But I mean, you could argue both are valid. You could absolutely do that.
Oh, people can do that. Okay.
Yeah. You could do that.
and also think of these values as local and global. So the values, these variables that are defined within the task are local to that task. And then these, the ones that are defined in the workflow are global. So then R can be used between the tasks. Does that make sense? Does that answer your question about variables, variable names?
And also, sorry. So even the workflow can have an output, not just the tasks.
Sorry, can you say that again?
Before the output goes into the task, actually also the workflow can have an output.
Right. Oh, you mean in this workflow, right? Yeah. You can output it from here.
Yeah, so if you only have one output, you don't really need to specify what is the final output of the workflow. But it's something that basically when you, so definitely for the task, you have to define what is the output of the task. For the workflow, putting that is a way of telling well, this is the final output that I care about. Because you may have a bunch of intermediate outputs that you don't care about. They'll still be saved and they'll still be present. But by putting it there specifically, you have access to it and you can see it show up in the final summary and things like that. So it's like saying this output is special and we care about it. And the other utilities that track normal will be able to do things with that final output. That's, for example, like how Terra knows where to get that the final output. Yes, you can have multiple outputs. You can have as many as you want.
And then you can, and they'll just be shown in the Cromwell execution folder. You'll see that list in the standard out of that run, and then just copy that and cat it, and you'll find those outputs. Excuse me. All right, so let's go ahead and run this command, which you see right here. After we finish running this, it's the same input JSON. So after we finish running this, we'll try to introduce some errors and see how that'll change things.
So basically all the tasks can be changed by a variable instead of file. That's right on the fly.
Yeah. So you have a lot of flexibility. And the nice thing is that the Cromwell knows, depending on the dependencies, it knows how tasks depend on each other, and that's how it knows when to start running a task. It will only start running a task when the inputs become available. It depends on upstream tasks. It'll wait until they're complete, and then it'll start the downstream tasks.
So in the graphical, probably task can be changed by file instead of variable.
Yeah, that's, I mean, generally.
All right, so you all know where to find the output for that file? Yes, no? As long as you're all saying hello Denmark to you too, we're all good.
Or you can tweak it to say hello.
And we'll do that.
Oh, okay, good.
All right, if you don't have any further questions, the next part of this tutorial is to validate. Somebody wanted to learn about how to validate your script, and also how do you know how, instead of having to create these input JSONs, there's an automated way to create this file and like basically create a blank input JSON, and then you just throw in the values. And for both validating your WDL script and to create your input JSON file, there's this other tool, it's called WarmTool, that is also in your jars file. I'm not sure why we call it WarmTool.
For the workflow objects model.
Nice.
It's an obscure thing. It used to be called WDL, but then they added CWL support, so it's more tool. That's more generic. Utility to work with this.
Nice. Okay. Did not know that. Okay. So the command line for validating a WarmTool is very simple. It's right up here. Java jar, give it the WarmTool jar file, type validate, and the WDL file. So before we validate our file, let's try to introduce some errors in the WDL file that we were looking at just now. Do you want to call? Oh yeah, sorry. I totally forgot about that. 15 minutes?
Oh, yeah, sure.
All right, sorry. Did you, we can pick up validating WDL scripts from here. And thank you for pointing that out to me. All right, coffee break, everyone. Let's meet back at 11. All right. The next step is to validate our WDL scripts. But before that, let's add a little bit of an error to our WDL script we've been working with. So go into an editor, and it is in Hello World. Hello World, no, the second WDL. Let's go into that. This is fine. Yeah. All right.
So you can get syntax highlighting and some line tabs. I think. Let me go ahead. There's more than just line tabs.
Yeah, there's a few other code editors that have little highlighting. If you like a more traditional IE like the development environments, yeah, IntelliJ PyCharm from JetBrains
So this is the one.
have supported, and those are very full featured. But if that's overkill for you, it's
So where did it open though? Oh.
Just submit this type.
Yeah, but like which file does it open?
It has automatically open one file.
Yeah.
You can choose. Open the file. Make it full screen.
Ah, where's the plus? Oh, okay.
Yeah, make it full screen.
Yeah. All right. So we're gonna try to make a small change here. Make a change to any variable. I'm gonna add an S to greeting. And let's see if that makes or breaks this, this whittle. All right. Okay. All right, so we changed the name of the variable from greeting to greetings. Now I'm going to run Cromwell again, and let's see if that would work. So you see it says workflow failed state. So your workflow has failed. Now I want to know why my workflow failed. So what I'll do is run WarmTools. So type java-jar. In the jars folder, you have WarmTools. And then type validate and the WDL file that we were using just now. So the command is java jar, WarmTool jar, validate, and the WDL file. So now WarmTools will tell you that this particular variable greeting does not have a reference declaration. So what it means is that this variable has not been declared. So what we declared was a variable named greetings. We didn't declare greeting. So what I'm trying to get at is that you can use WarmTools to validate and tell you exactly where in your WDL there's an error. And then you go into that location and you try to fix it. And so it'll tell you the error is here. This is not defined. and the task is write greeting. So you go into that particular task, look for that variable, see whether you have or have not defined it, and if you have, maybe you've defined it wrong. Sound good? Questions? Okay, now let's go back and fix that. Actually, let's replace that with an integer instead. Let's write int greeting, remove the s, remove the s, and make this an integer. And now let's run that again. So why do you think it says that? Sorry? Exactly. So there's some things your WarmTools can do, there's some it cannot. For example, now, if I were to write a command like a GATK command, and in my command I messed up certain variables, WarmTool doesn't know GATK. WarmTool doesn't know whether it was the right command or wrong. Your WDL will fail to run because it probably didn't get a reference file or whatever, but you can't validate those values from WarmTools. What you can do with WarmTool is to check if your syntax for your WDL is correct.
Yeah, and that's really WarmTool's validate. Its job is to validate the syntax. Did you use the right grammar, the right language to express what you want to do? Whether what you want to do is legit or not, it's not its job.
Make sense? So that's why this time it said success and didn't tell you where the error is.
Yeah, so you run through the meeting or something, and it fails. So you use like probably a value substitution for that. So does it show what command it runs?
I will show you that. Yes, I'll show you if WarmTools as like if it's not a syntax error, if it's a tool error, I'll show you how you can look into that. So it creates a standard error file, and in the standard error file, it'll give you details of this is where GATK error comes from.
But even before that, so I think the question is, how do I know how my command is interpreted between like there's a command with a whole bunch of variables in it? How do I know that it's using the right values in the right places?
Okay.
And you can see one of the files that is created in the kernel execution directory is called scripts, and helpfully that contains the actual script that gets run when it executes, and that includes the commands block completely interpreted with all the like file paths and stuff like that. So you can see exactly what files and what values it's using for every parameter. So you know exactly what it's doing. That can be very helpful for troubleshooting if you suspect that it's one of the values.
I'm going to show you how to, the fifth section of this is to run a GATK command. I'll show you how to name different files and input that in a GATK command. All right, so we spoke about how do you use WarmTools to validate. The next one is how do you use it to create an empty JSON file. And the command for that is java jar WarmTools inputs, and then give it the WDL that you want to create an inputs JSON for, and then the name that you want your JSON file to be created under. So let's try to create, actually before that, let's go back to our file and change that int to string. And now run WarmTools. Okay. So you have the command here on the screen on the left. All of this is in your exercise worksheet. So let's run this command and see what this file looks like. No one. So this is what your this is what WarmTools created for you. It basically creates a template for your JSON file, and then all you need to do is provide this value. All right. Sure. Yeah. Okay. So WarmTools graph. Hmm.
So this is the dot format. You have graph viz installed on your machine. You can generate a PNG or SVG or other kinds of things. Can you just type dot enter PNG and see if it's installed? Literally the word dot.
Oh.
Okay, so there are online tools. Maybe go to web graph viz.
Yeah, please.
Someone asked about this.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I've used that before. It's very helpful, just to create like a flow diagram of where all your.
How do I go to this?
Oh, this is yeah.
Yes.
Yes. So this is on the screen, so you can do it from here if you want.
I can't copy this text into this.
Oh, you can do that here. You'll just need to
I
move
see
this.
that. Right, so if I pick this dot code. So normally what you would do is you would pipe this into, sorry, it's a foreign,
Yeah, I've been having trouble with that too. It's here.
the forward pipe.
The forward.
Oh, there we go. Shift. There we go.
Yeah.
Okay. And then you can do dot dash T G some dot and so this command will give you will generate a nice PNG for you on your local machine. You can look at that. Since we don't have dot installed locally, we're going to look at WebGraph Viz. And we're going to copy this, paste it, graph. Okay, we only have one call on this graph.
I can actually
like a
give
more-
you another one. Let's just probably go to GATK and download one of the GATK whittles.
Sure,
Should we do that?
sure.
Yeah.
Here you go.
Yeah.
Use one of those little puzzles. The optimized appetite for one.
Okay.
Is it on the computer?
Yeah, it's on here. It's in OS.
Oh, puzzles.
Yeah.
So
Which
if
one?
you take Turbo HC, that one should be valid.
Okay.
And you don't need a JSON for that, right?
Right. Yeah. So I'm gonna
Yeah. Jar.
/ is where? Doesn't matter. Where did I run my?
Yeah.
Here.
Yeah. And then so maybe if you just did.
There we go. All right.
Yeah.
Close. Right to our commands. And it's in
Puzzles.
puzzles,
And it is Turbo.
Actually, I think it's in solutions. Build solutions.
solutions, turbo,
Yeah.
that whittle.
Solved
Yeah,
one.
solved.
Solve.
Yeah, this one has the errors. All right.
Right.
I mean, it's a small one, but
Yeah, something more than one call. All right. So slightly more interesting, but if you have a scatter, if you have multiple connecting chain workflow calls, it gives you a nice graphical way of validating it. It's also a nice way to share workflows. Versus giving someone a whittle, you can show them this, and it's a lot more intuitive to understand what's going on versus trying to parse whittle yourself.
We should add this.
One more. Just as far as things you can do to help share is you can generate HTML. So highlight is a WarmTool command. There's a bunch of WarmTool commands. You should check out the documentation, but it's just like a Swiss Army knife for whittle. That no longer supported? Oh, deprecated whittle draft 2. Is it whittle draft? Is the turbo one whittle draft, or is it whittle 1.0? It is draft 2, so it should work.
I mean, unless somebody's updated it.
Oh, I think I need to highlight mode. All right, well, these are live demos, but anyway, WarmTool has more commands.
Can you also share with them the link to a documentation that will help
Sure.
them walk through this?
If you go to cromwell.rtfd.io. This is Cromwell's documentation. It tries to be complete. There's a lot of things covered. If you have questions, GitHub's a good place. We try to make this pretty good. And then WarmTool is part of that. And it goes through in a lot more. So it gives you the standard output if you just run it, but then it also goes in a lot more detail on running each individual command. So it's highlight documentation, parse the graph thing we just talked about. Like it. Yeah.
So,
yep.
It would be nice if the graph function takes also the inputs into account.
So you can. So let's go back and. So I don't run this terribly often, but let's try it. All right. So if you give this the all. Yeah, if you give all, it's like a verbose version of graph, and it tells you down here that it includes things such as the inputs. So when you're not in a live demo, try that out.
All right. That was very helpful. Thanks, Dan. All right, where were we at? So now we're going to try to run GATK from within a WDL. Let me. All right, somebody was asking, how do you define the various files if you're running a GATK command? How do you define that within a WDL? And here's how. In this workflow, we're calling the task haplotype caller GVCF. Within this, there are all of these multiple files, ref FASTA A, ref index, ref dictionary, input BAM index. You will notice that when you run GATK, you normally don't provide it with an index file, right? You don't provide the dictionary explicitly. It's in the same folder, but when you're running, you just run ref FASTA. It'll look for an index in the same location. WDL does not know how to do that. So you will need to specify the index, dictionary, and essentially all the indexes and dictionaries for your file. And then there is this other value right up here, Java OPT. When you run your GATK commands, sometimes you give it the maximum physical memory that your tool can use. You can set that here with Java _OPT. In command line, you use the XMX option, which essentially defines the maximum memory that your tool can use. So in here, you will just use this value. Yes. So then it'll throw you an error.
Yeah, I mean, you'll get an out of memory. I mean, it depends a little bit how your computer is at, but typically GTK will quit with an out of memory error, return a non-zero error code, and Cromwell will consider the task as failed.
Yeah.
And you can configure the behavior whether you want it to stop everything once you have one failure, or run everything else as long as it can if there's other stuff that it can run. So there's a lot of configurability around that.
there's a lot you can do with configuring your Cromwell server. Now you're doing it locally, and there's other ways of running Cromwell. I think there is documentation for it. All right.
So can I ask what
Yeah.
best name of the import band doesn't have band extension, or import band does it have as a file? Does it have that band extension?
So these are your input variables. Your input BAM is a variable.
Can you scroll down? So this one.
Oh,
here-
this.
So this is the thing I was saying earlier, the function in the standard library that allows you to say, I want to name the output based on the name of my input file. My input file is an input BAM that has a .bam extension. I know that because that's always going to be the case. And I'm saying, get me the base name of that file. So get rid of the path information, strip off this extension. And so if it was my file.bam, I now have my file as a string, and I can say the output file is going to be my file.g.txt.
It does two functions. One is
Yeah,
remove
yeah, it's
path
double
and a
function.
substitute.
Yeah, it's to grab that. By default, it just gets rid of the path, but you can also do that as extension substitution.
So also notice that we're then using that variable in two places. One is in the output flag GATK, and then also in the task output, so the task output has to match. You declare a file, it has to match with the files you produce as a result of your shell. So in this way, you make sure they match by setting variable.
Yeah, so that way, if you had hard coded a name, let's say, and then you put it there, and you also put it here, and then you change your mind about how you're going to call it, and you don't update it here, your command is going to run. The Cromwell is going to fail because it won't recognize. It will be like, I'm not finding a file with this name, and so using variables like that in general helps us make sure that we don't get that kind of problem.
All right. So until now, you're using the hello hello world folder. Now let's use hello GATK and run this. So you have a hello GATK WDL and hello GATK inputs JSON within your hello GATK folder. So let's run Cromwell on it. And provided the input JSON file. The command for that is right here. Yes.
The WDL file is the same name as the WDL file plus .inputs.json.
So you're talking about the matching between these and right. So in your
Yeah, so any name you want. By convention, we try to use the same name just for sanity. But if you want to call it something,
yeah, and all you need to do is make sure that in your input JSON, it knows how to go to that variable. So like it's looking for that workflow and then that task and then the variable name. And we do this because once you start using WDL more and more, you'll want to call other WDLs from your master WDL. And so you want to make sure that your input JSONs have this workflow name and the task and input so that they're like this is a unique identifier of that variable. This one, creating this JSON?
Create templates. The WarmTool actually do that. So WarmTool inputs will create a template JSON based on your WDL scripts, and then you can write in the actual values.
We just ran that actually. So I think the question is how to populate. We just ran WarmTools to create the input JSON. So we saw how we created the input JSON file. The point is, these values, do you manually enter them or is there an automated way of entering it? So that, yes, you'll need to put these values in.
You could script this. I mean, you could make a script that generates populated based on if you have a script. You can automate that, but we don't provide the tool.
Yeah, and WarmTools won't do that.
So for the Java option, you can put other options for Java, like
XMX value?
like temporary directory or the boundary collection.
Yeah,
You can,
plug any and this is a GATK specific setup, but anything that you would put in the Java options
will go in there.
between here, and it's the syntax is going to be basically just end string after this Java options.
Yeah, you can do XMS, all of those. Just give it a different variable here, and then make it Java opt1, Java opt2, and then in here you'll have,
So
you can have
actually
dash.
just write one string if you want. So if you
Yeah,
want to have
or that.
multiple ones, you just separate with a space. Within those double quotes, you can put as many as you want, just separated.
Yeah, you can do that too.
Yeah, sure.
So that you can do by defining the variable type. So you can have.
Yeah, so depending on how you set up your script, JSON needs to match. Depending on how you choose to write the.
So for example, if you want to give, you have multiple lanes for read one, and you want to give it an array list instead of, instead of one file, you want to give it an array list of file, you can do that. So you just basically give it in an array format with a square box. All right, so that's how you run GATK with WDL. Should we, that is at, yeah. Did you want to talk about the workshop? I have one more section. Okay. So if you have one additional thing that I wanted to add is if you have any errors, instead of standard out, it will go to standard. You remember we had this output in our standard out, which you copied, and then you go to that file and read the standard out. So say you have an error in your GATK file, in your command, or any GATK related error, that will go into standard error. That's right here. So instead of standard out, it will say standard error, and then you can read that file and see what your GATK error is. Questions? Because next we're going to see how you take this WDL and put it in Terra and run it. Please stop and ask questions because you're going to be using a lot of this in the hackathon. Hackathon will be a lot of fun, but to do that, you'll need to know some amount of WDL. All right, so then in that case, let's go back to Terra. app.terra.bio, right? All right. For later, when you want to take a look at how this was done, you don't have to memorize all of that now, but we have all of those details with good images right here. Okay. So, oops. Currently, the way you upload WDL is using the methods repository of FireCloud. Has anybody used FireCloud before? One person. Okay. So we are working on how to import WDL directly from Terra, and that'll soon be a feature. But currently, to upload anything into Terra, we need to go back to the first version of Terra, which was called FireCloud. And how you do that is go to your hamburger menu on the left, go to Code and Tools, and then on the right-hand corner, you'll see this Broad Methods repository. Click on that. Because you're a new user, you'll just need to accept this.
And this is just because this piece of the application is a legacy from a previous version and had a different terms of service agreement. That's why it's making it accepted. It's essentially like the same thing, just some of the language has been updated. That's why you have to click through one more time.
Is that
Do a
thing?
refresh of your offline credentials for sure.
Okay.
Probably dismiss the banners too. It's taking up a lot of space.
Yeah. Let's close that. All right. Now, click on Create New Method. Go to Load from File. So let me go back. Is everybody on this page? Were you able to get to this page? No? Okay, great. Let's figure that out. Any help on this side? Let's see if you're here. Oh, perfect. You're there. You're there too. Are you on this page yet? Yeah. Okay, so you accept, and then just refresh that. If it says refresh now on, oh, you're there, perfect. Okay, and then you can just close those things on top if you like. Everybody here? Yes.
I need to click here.
Yes.
Click some program.
Sign in with Google. Yeah, and use the one that you used for this one. Okay, great. Yeah. And then you accept the terms and conditions and you're all set. Okay, everybody on this side looks good. Are you there? Okay, he's starting now. I can show you how to get there. So go back to Terra, click on Broad Method Repositories and Code and Tools. Good, you're already there. And that's it. It should take you there. If for any reason it asks you to sign in, just sign in with Google. Oh, there you go. Accept and you're set. Is everybody on that page on this side? You're all good? Okay.
So some of you are experiencing a little bit of delay when loading this page. And this is one of the pieces of the older pieces of the system that we're upgrading. That's one of the pieces that has
Go there. And then, yeah. And then just close those. You don't need that. And I'll show you how to, you're there. Okay. Looks like we got this side covered. Anybody on that side that has trouble getting to this page? No? We all good this side? Andre, are you good that side? Okay. All right. So now let's create a new method. This is essentially creating a repository for your workspace. Load from file. And then you go to GATK 2019. So what you're trying to do here is loading the WDL file. One way you could have done it is by just copy pasting that WDL file here, copy the WDL, throw it in here, or just load it from the file, which is, Lakshman, where's the, oh, this is the older one? Yeah, oh, that's this one. Okay, great, sorry. Go to the bundle, and then go to this fold called Terra. And within Terra, you'll have the hello GATK terra.wdl. Click on that. Are we good? So how you did that is basically load from file and then find that file in your directory, which is, and it is in your GATK bundle that you're using until now to run your WDL files. So you have the jars file, you have the hello WDL, hello GATK. There's another folder called Terra. You have that, this Terra WDL in there. Upload that. Everybody good here? Everybody good on this side? Anybody, how many of you got this working? Like how many of you have this WDL on your screens? Okay. All right, looks good. Okay, and then you just hit upload. Oh, you need to specify the namespace, sorry. The namespace can be anything, just a unique namespace. So just maybe write your name and first and last name for now, and we'll see how this translates to the workspace. And then in the name, type terra.wdl. And then hit upload. How many of you uploaded the WDL? Any troubles there? Were you able to get that done? So you have to, yeah, no spaces in there. So just, perfect. All right, so now what we're gonna do is export this repository that we created of the WDL to Terra. So what you need to do is click on that button on the left which says export to workspace. Sorry? Oh, sorry, right. My left, your right. All right. Use blank configuration. Under select a workspace, type create new workspace. So remember when we cloned a workspace, you had the workspace name, it was GATK Somatic 2019. For your workspace, you will need to create a name, similar name for that now. You could call it Terra Workshop, your name, underscore your name, anything basically. But this will just define your workspace name. So let's say Helsinki workshop underscore. And then the billing project is the free credits billing project. Once you start working on it and you have your own lab billing, Google billing project, you'll put that value in here. Description, remember we had this dashboard which explains what your workspace contains. You can add information here that will go to the dashboard. This is dashboard information. And I can't spell. And export to workspace. And then it says, would you like to go to the edit page now? It's basically asking you the page that you created, do you want to go there now, which is your workspace on Terra? Hit yes. And you're back to Terra. So now, if you go to your dashboard, remember the information that I added? This is dashboard information. You'll see that on your dashboard. In tools, it's taking a second, but it should show you the WDL we just uploaded. Is it just my computer or are you guys also seeing this wrong thing? Yeah, okay. Oh, perfect. Oh, okay. Mine worked. How many of you are still waiting? Oh, looks like it worked for everyone. Okay, so now we have our WDL. You can look at this script in here. We talked about this script multiple times before. You probably didn't understand what's in it, but now you should be able to. You have the workflow name, you have a task, you have variables defined for your task, you have a command, you have an output file, and then there's also a runtime environment defined here. What this is essentially doing is, remember when we used notebooks, we used a user script to install GATK. Here in a WDL, you can install GATK using a Docker, a GATK Docker that's also provided to you on the GATK website. But basically, you put the Docker image information here, the memory values, define the memory, disk space, preemptables if you want to preempt. Geraldine spoke about preemptables on day one. It's how you save 1/5 of your cost by, you pay 1/5, right? You save 4/5. You pay 1/5 of your amount if you're okay with your machine being taken away for a while. But that's essentially what preemptables are. So that's where the script is. Now, inputs. we need all these inputs, right? So how do we upload the JSON? Well, that's right here in the right side corner. Upload JSON. Click on that. And we have a JSON file for you in the Terra folder where you found the WDL. Use the JSON. And voila, all your values are filled in for you. And then you hit save. So now you have all of these values, but, and so these are your main input files and so on and so forth, right? If you wanted to upload a data set, how would you do that? Remember we have this data column with all this information. How you do that is basically, there's a format to create this data model. We've provided that to you in the same folder again. Those are the TSV files. So you hit this plus button where it says upload TSV. I'll show you the format. It's very simple. There's a participant TSV and a sample TSV. Let's upload those and then I'll tell you what's in there. And then I think this is a new feature. The association between sample, pair, and participant. I'll show you what this means in a second, but select that. And upload your participant TSV. You'll see participant +1. Click the tables again. Upload sample TSV as well. And check that box where it says creates associations. Upload. And then under workspace data, again, there's upload TSV on the right side corner instead. So there's no plus sign, but on the right side you have this upload TSV. Sorry, left. But wait, on your screens it would be right. Right is fine. Right. Upload TSV, and it says workspace attributes. So what's happening here is basically workspace attributes are all your reference files. Your reference files stay constant, right? They don't change with samples. So workspace, the way this data model is created is this workspace data is more like your global file set, which is essentially used for anything in the workspace. Your samples and participants are specific to your run. So you probably want to run it on one sample, you want to run it on 5 samples.
We've run into an issue.
Yeah.
Several people where they're trying to upload the TSV, but it's telling them the file doesn't start with the entity thing.
Sorry, what?
I don't know. Yeah, so when they're trying to upload the TSV file, they get an error that it's not valid because it doesn't start with the entity thing.
Can I take a look here?
Maybe I can click on it.
That's fine. Who is getting that error? Okay, so let's go. Can we go back? Yeah, cancel. Click on tables plus. Click, select yeah. And then no, you're in the wrong folder. Go to Terra. Yeah, sample both. So let's start with participant TSV. Yeah, open. And check this box. Upload. Folder, yeah. Okay, so there's your file. Yeah. Slower? Okay, sounds good. Yeah, okay, I'll go a little slower. So if you clicked on this again, yeah, and then select TSV again, and now you're uploading your sample TSV. and check the box. Yeah, click again. Sample TSV, open, and check the box. Upload. Yeah, and then do the same, click on workspace data. And yeah, click on the right, upload TSV. Yeah, workspace attributes. Yeah, and open. So cancel, workspace, upload TSV, workspace attributes. Workspace attribute, last one, yeah, open. That's all for now. Were you able to do it? Yeah, and then you need to upload your workspace data. Oh, if you just press on that, you can select which one. I'll get to that in a second. I haven't gotten, yeah, sure. Yeah.
When we choose the wrong one, the uploaded successfully. Basically, it's know which one is the right one.
I will show you that. I'll explain that in a second. Yes. Oh, okay. Namespace, just you can create any names. Okay. Sure. Oh. Do you want to pause now and then, or just finish? Yeah. So what we'll do is, there is one other, all we need to do next is run it. I'll explain this data model. We'll run this, and we'll, after lunch, we'll take another 5 minutes to go over the steps again. Sound good? Yeah? Okay. So what we did just now is create a data model. It's totally understandable if it's a little confusing, but let's try to figure it out. So the TSV files that we were looking at essentially has this, this data that you see in front of you in a TSV format. And the difference, and so basically your sample TSV will have your sample name, tab, because it's a TSV tab delimited file, tab, your input BAM file, and then your index and your participant ID. Now, what's a participant ID and why do we use it? For example, I want to run blood, saliva samples of one participant. And I have, yeah.
So I think if people have questions about the data model, that in the activity. But I think since we have this coming in, we should wrap up.
Oh, speaker's already here. Okay.
So if you just want to show launching what you brought in on the data.
Oh, okay. All right, so we'll take about 5 minutes later to run that. Should we just go over it then? Stop now. Yeah. So we can stop for now.